Okay, let's kick it off. Welcome to Read the Source. Today we have Chris Strom with us. Very exciting. Chris is this amazing blogger. If you do any front-end web development, you must have run into his blog posts. How many of them are there, Chris? Like 16, 1700 now?
Yeah, something along those lines.
It's a huge number of blog posts. And Chris is also the author of quite a handful of books. I think Dart for Hipsters, Recipes with Backbone, The Speedy Book, Patterns in Polymer, and 3D Game Programming for Kids. Are there any others in the works?
Got a couple that I'm thinking about doing, but haven't gotten started on them yet.
Cool.
So Dart for Hipsters is getting renamed, right?
It is. Sadly enough, it's no longer just for hipsters. It's now Dart 1 for everyone.
Well, that's good though.
So today we're going to take a look inside the ICE code editor, and can you tell ICE is used in the book through Chris?
I'm sorry, I'm losing. Having a little bit of difficulty with connectivity here.
Oh, okay. So ICE, the code editor, that was made primarily for 3D game programming with kids?
Yeah, it was. It was when I first started writing that book. It was I was having kids write files on the file system and having them load up in the browser and all that kind of stuff, and it was painful because writing on the file system, no web server, all that kind of stuff, and trying to deal with cross-platform and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty horrible. But then the maintainer of the 3JS project, I think Ricardo Cabello, I think is his name. Pardon me on the pronunciation, but he's better known as Mr. Doob. He slapped together this this amazing little demo app, code editor, over the weekend, I assume, because he's just that brilliant. That did like 90% of what I needed. It was pretty amazing. And it was, you type in code and it makes the changes in the background and you can see your visualizations and all that kind of stuff. It was it really is pretty fantastic, the stuff that he did. And I thought, that's perfect. I need to use something like that. And so I ended up stealing a lot of that and incorporating that into the book, and it really made all the difference in the world for the kids.
That's great. So why don't we take a look at it? Can you show us a quick example?
Sure.
Ready to screen share?
I am ready to screen share.
Awesome.
Let's see. Maybe not. Okay. All right. You can see my screen?
Yep.
Good deal. So the actual code editor itself is this little thing. This is the ICE code editor itself. It's got basic code editing that goes on in here, and in the background you can see shapes that are spinning. This is from the first chapter in the book. And the nice thing about this is that if you go in and you make changes to make changes to the code. So if I can change the donut's rotation to be, whoops. Just make a code change like that. It'll update automatically in the background, as long as I guess the server is running. All right. So if we change that code, now the donut is spinning out of control really, really fast, and this is really nice for the kids to be able to get that instant feedback, make changes to their code, see everything change, really feel like they've got control over what they're doing as they go through and work on the various exercises. This instant feedback has really made all the difference in the world.
So it's not just for kids, right? We can play with it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a sneaky way of teaching JavaScript. The 3D game programming for kids book isn't just for kids. It does eventually get into some of the details of JavaScript programming language, and 3D game concepts, as well as 3D game concepts, and then the 3JS library in order to do all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's for anybody, and I'd like to think that this is a nice, a nice demo preview kind of thing for just about anybody that might want to be coding any kind of 3JS code. Although there are some nicer, more featureful editors that came from the 3JS project itself.
So, Chris, this is Eric. I had a question. That's pretty awesome with that stuff, and I know Christian and I also paired with you on this project. I did for one small section, but what would be a good place to start to dive into the code as far as what would be a good entry point to see how the whole system works?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I guess if you're looking for code, I guess the main entry point would be the ice.dart file, which is over here. So I'm an Emacs guy by trade, so this is what we're looking at right here, and this is the main entry point.
Jim!
No way, man. Come on, it's Emacs, the one true editor.
All right, I'm gonna stop there. So with this is in the root directory, right? Can we see the directory structure?
Directory structure is a little bit larger, so.
Before we dive into this, could we take a quick step back and point out where people can get the code and what do we need to get set up to run this stuff?
I posted the link to the GitHub. So Chris, if you could just verify that in the comments, just to make sure that that's where the current repo lives.
Yeah, that we'll do that. That is the correct location right now.
Okay.
Yep. So GitHub //c / ice code editor is the current location of it. And let's see. So the directory structure right now, that there are a lot of files that are in there. Build docs are not really necessary. The lib is a lot of the directory structure, a lot of the code organization comes from Dart itself. This is a Dart application that's compiled into JavaScript so that any modern browser can use it. And so Dart, packages prescribe that everything goes into the lib directory. Most of the code goes into the lib directory, including some assets go in there as well. So in there we've got editor file, we've got a whole bunch of menus and dialogues that go into there. The main entry point, or the main file that contains just about everything, all the code is going to be in this full.dart right here. And then ice.dart is what pulls it all together. And this is really, this is one of the reasons that I really like Dart as a programming language. It makes this kind of code organization it's built in. It makes it trivial to use, and it encourages that. It encourages people to break code out into the components that just make sense. You don't have to worry about using require.js or common.js or any kind of packages, crazy package structure that is out there. This just works, so it's really quite nice. All right, let's see. So the main file that we're going to look at in here is the ice code editor, itself, just looking at it visually, is comprised of three main components: the actual code editor here, the background preview layer back there, and it's got a bunch of projects that you can create. It allows you to create and organize projects that are in there. So there's a back-end data store as well. And so that's what these files are, or these code files are at the top right here. We've got editor.dart, which is the main interaction for the actual editing. Store is where the local storage is done. It's all done with just regular local storage. It serves nicely for this kind of stuff. And then down here on line 18, full.dart is it combines the editor and the data store and manages all that kind of stuff. So unless do you have any questions about that, or do you want to jump right into full.dart?
Yeah, let's check it out.
All right. So full.dart is the full screen IDE. It pulls in both the ICE, the ICE code editor, the local storage back there, and it manages communication between those things. And I should point out that this is a very old Dart project. It's been around since well before Dart went 1.0. So there are some things that are in here that are, could maybe be cleaned up after, to be a little bit more adherent to the modern standards of Dart. So if there are any things in here that are poorly done, that's my fault, or it's my fault because we've got that code from a long time ago. It shouldn't reflect badly on Dart as a language itself.
Is that something that would be good for pull requests, or do you think that that's something that needs a total overhaul on this?
It would be fine to do. It would be fine to do a pull request. It would also be nice just to work with me on some of the pair with me sessions that I have nightly. It would be nice to sit down and chat with people to go over some of the code organization that we have right now and maybe discuss where we want to head and some of that kind of stuff. But there are some places where it's fairly obvious that some of the classes have just gotten too large. There are some things that need to be broken out into their own classes, and if people are interested or are so inclined, I'm more than eager to accept a few pull requests on that.
Cool.
Okay. So this is the ice.dart. This is, again, the main entry point right here. This is the library ice.dart. This is how Dart just does these kind of things. And each one of these little parts in here need to declare themselves as part of ice as well. That's just how Dart likes to organize things. So this class full comes down here, and on line 9, this function-looking thing is actually the constructor. Constructors in Dart are named after the class. And there's a good reason for doing that kind of stuff. So you can have any number of named constructors in the code, although I'm not using it here. This is just like a plain old ordinary constructor right here. And in here we find the element that we want to attach the ICE code editor to. We create an instance of the editor. We create an instance of the data store. We grab some settings. There are a few settings that we're using nowadays, but this is still this line 15 settings is relatively new. And then we go through and add a bunch of handlers for keyboard handling, mouse handling, messages that might go back and forth, drop handlers for dropping code in there, that kind of stuff. And then we apply some styles. And I should point out that the underscore, the leading underscore, isn't just like a convention in Dart. It's actually built into the language. If you have a method that starts with an underscore, it's a private method. So these methods right here would not be accessible outside of the full.dart class. And then down here on line 24, we've got like a promise is the JavaScript equivalent, but this is a future. That decides when the editor is ready, when the JavaScript code is initialized and all that kind of stuff. Then we go through and do a bunch of other work. We attach the code toolbar, preview toolbar. We start the autosave that occurs in there, because the kids shouldn't have to know. I mean, this is again for kids. They shouldn't have to think about saving their code, their projects. So there's an autosave feature that's in there. This opens the initial project, the most recent project that the kids may have been working on. Initialize settings for first use. That's the new settings stuff that we've been working on this release. Apply some editor modes. That's more of a Easter egg kind of thing feature that most people won't use, but I like to have them in there. And then we apply some styles. And so this is the constructor. Whenever you create a new instance to the full screen IDE, these are all the things that get initialized. Any questions on any of that?
Well, just to clarify that the futures are basically the promise implementation from Dart, right? Because it was called futures originally. Is that correct?
Well, futures have been around since I think futures predated promises in in
Yeah,
JavaScript.
that's what I mean.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Those private methods, is there a way to access those for testing?
No, there's not.
Okay.
I mean, they're private methods, so yeah. That one doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, if especially and we'll take a look at some of the tests in here in a little bit, but I like to have more acceptance like testing than I do like individual unit tests. And so being able to test private methods, that doesn't really bother me too much. It's not something I typically want to be able to do.
And is it for a front end developer? That's coming from my background. When I see something like in what I think of as a back end code, right? I see new element.html. I sort of cringe at markup being injected from anything not even JavaScript in some cases. But is that typical of Dart projects?
No, I mean it's not typical, and I know what you're saying. This kind of bothers me as well. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you why this has to be like some really old code.
No, it's
I'm
no
not sure.
judgment. I just think like things like Elm and some of these compiled JS languages, they really do a good job of optimizing it. So that's why I'm kind of asking if it's an optimization done or if it's just that's just the way you wanted to do it and it worked out nice.
I would say neither. I think it's just. I think that's probably some really, really old code that haven't really gone back and revisited. There are nicer ways of doing that. There are constructors for creating divs without having to actually have the brackets in there or anything like that, which would probably be cleaner than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could tell because line 11 is also not the way of doing this. Normally, you would just append onto the body, append that element onto the body. So that's just code that I haven't looked at in a long, long time.
Yeah, sorry, I was just curious about that.
No, and that's all right. I mean, I'm not too defensive about this. It's like I said. I mean, it's been code that's been around, and some of this is may have just done that because it was the only way to do it back when Dart was at milestone 8 or whatever they used to call those the release numbers.
Yeah.
So. All right. Any other questions about constructor or any of this stuff? All right. Oh, one other thing. I really like these dots right in here. This is a method cascade. So this is a way of calling methods over and over again on this one object, this one property up here, this editor ready future. That's what allows us to do these, call these thens over and over again. So it's a nice way of doing some code organization. And why don't we look did that a little bit more with some of the menus. Let's take a look at the menus next. As you can see, I mean, this code file right here, it's 411 lines long. That's really gotten a little bit out of hand. Some of this stuff really needs to be broken out into its own file, but
that's nothing. 400 lines.
It's one of the things that one of the reasons I like coding in Dart is that there's no barrier to creating new classes that when they make sense, and there must be a good amount of code in here that really wants to be broken out into its own class, and I just haven't gotten around to doing that. So if somebody wants to help out, that would be a nice way of doing it. But let's go ahead and look at this show main menu method. I kind of like this code right here, and it'll lead into some of the testing that we do. This is called whenever you click on the menu button up here. So click on that. It pulls up a menu with, create a new project, open an existing project, copy, rename, all that kind of good stuff in here. This is done by creating. here we are again. We've got a new element where we're including brackets, or the curly bracket, or the brackets, I guess, with that. But it's not too horrible. And then we append that onto the main element. The main element that is, contains the entire application. And then we take this menu and we append on a bunch of these little things. And this is, this kind of cleanup here is really nice. It's nice to know that we're just operating, all this code here operates on this menu, and all we're doing is appending a whole bunch of things. We're appending all these dialogues onto the menu right there. Really like the method cascades for doing that kind of stuff. Let's see. Let's look at.
Does that actually call like the DOM methods for append, like over and over, or does it do one optimized call to append it?
It would. I mean, it's got to call it over and over again. So it's gonna call it for the new project. It's gonna call it for open. It's gonna call it for copy. Every time it's gonna go through and add it to the menu right there.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Let's take a look at the CopyDialog. A nice one down here. This also demonstrates another nice feature of Dart, or a couple of nice features of Dart. So this is a CopyDialog, which looks like a property, or looks like a variable or something like that, because it doesn't have the parentheses on the end. But really, it's a method that we're describing as a getter. That's what the get here means. It means it is a method, but it behaves, or it looks like, a property. So it cleans up the code a little bit. I mean, there's no need to have a whole bunch of parentheses inside any of these things. It would make it harder to read. And one of the reasons that I like Dart so much is that it makes code readable like this. So in here, we've also got this little hash rocket operator right here. We could also write this code like that. If we wanted to, we could return the new menu. This would be identical to this up here, to the way we did it before. Except, we do this all the time in our code. We have a lot of instances where we just want to return one small value or one small calculation or something like that. And so Dart has a nice little a nice little syntactic sugar, which is this hash rocket operator, which is just the same thing as a method that has a body that just returns something. So we just delete the return.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of CopyScript.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice. I mean, I really miss this in other languages that I work in, because I mean, this happens all the time. These little one-liner methods, and it seems crazy to wrap it inside of a do block or inside of curly braces or any of that kind of stuff. Or all you really want to do is say, I've got my CopyDialog. When I create a new menu item that's got a new CopyDialog inside there. So yeah, I really appreciate this little feature of Dart. Good. Any questions so far? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Can't see your screen there.
Can you see my screen?
It went away when I was talking. I lost my question. I'll come back to it.
Okay, well, hopefully my screen is still showing right now.
It is.
Okay, good deal. So look at the CopyDialog object over here. And now in here we definitely have some HTML that we're embedding directly in there. Take it kind of like I would probably keep it this way, but this is also part of ICE. It's a class CopyDialog which extends dialog and implements menu action. Both of these are classes or interfaces that we've defined in the ICE code editor code base, just to describe what functions need to be there, what methods need to be there for a menu action, and dialog has a little bit of functionality that's just sort of built in that we can override if we want. It just makes a way, I mean, it's the standard kind of stuff that you would want these things to do. It makes a way of defining the way we want this to look. They all have to have an open method. They all have to have a name property, and this lets us enforce it at a programming language level. So it's nice. I really appreciate this. Let's go through. Let's look at the OpenDialog right here, the open method right here. In here, we're going to go ahead and create the dialog itself by creating a new element, a new HTML element. And in here we embed HTML directly in here. And I don't know, I kind of like having this right here rather than breaking this out into a separate file, because I can refer to, I can look here and I can see that it's got this class, it's got these IDs right here that we might want to use. I can embed the value directly in there if I want to. So it's nice to have this right in here. And Dart has this multi-line string that it supports, where you have to just put 3 apostrophes, and then you can make a multi-line string.
Yeah,
But
I can't wait until the browsers start implementing that with the template strings. I know Firefox has it right now. It's not 3 ticks though. It's just backtick, and you can interpolate inside of those. But yeah, there's some good reasons to do something like this if it's all related, for sure. But could you do like a element.template and pull in a file if you wanted to?
Oh, sure. I mean, and that's what that's what the Polymer.Dart project, the Polymer Dart project does for all that kind of stuff. It would be fairly easy to do stuff like that.
Very cool.
Yep. All right. So moving on down in here, if there's one thing I would say that I don't like about Dart, or that Dart still needs, is the ability to test text events or keyboard events. It doesn't work very well. It's something that's hard to do in even a JavaScript, but there are ways to generate key events in JavaScript, a certain level of key events in JavaScript that just aren't there in Dart just yet. So this little thing right here on line 20, all this does is makes a fake enter key that you can click on instead of actually typing enter. It's really hackish, and I'll be glad when that goes away, when Dart is able to support generating like enter key events. But the rest of the stuff on here, line 24 on down, is actual code. So I mean, we've got a button in here, so we query for the first button. That's what the query does, and then we set up the onClick handler. We listen to it, and whenever it's clicked, then we call this CopyProject private method, which is actually responsible for copying the current project into a new project name. And similarly, we've got this, we query for the input, the one input item up here, and we listen for key downs, and if the the key code is not key code enter, if it's not an enter key, then we return. Otherwise, we also, if it is the enter key, then we copy the project. And then we just add the dialog to the parent, and then we give the focus to the input element in order to do all that kind of stuff. And so this is, if we click on the CopyDialog, it should pull up a little, or if we click on the CopyDialog menu action, it should pull up the dialog that's got the name, the input field, and a save button. So we come back over here and do that, and make a copy. Name, input field, save, and it's got focus in there, so you can give it a different name, which is nice. Let's see. I guess we can take a look at the copy project method right here. This is responsible for validating. We've got a little bit of validation in there. This is the validation class. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we could probably use a little help on. I think we haven't done that as much as we've done elsewhere. Yeah, I mean, this is one area of the code that could use a little bit of cleanup. I think this may be the only field that actually uses the validation stuff. But assuming everything's okay, it validates. Then we come down here. We access the data store property. We get the title, which is the field value that's in there, and we create a new project. And the data that goes into the data store for the title that was given, it's just a an object literal in JavaScript or a map in Dart with the code pointing to the current content of the ICE code editor itself. That's all that's necessary in order to create a new project, a new record in the project's database. And then we just remove the ICE dialog and we're done.
And that's stored in local storage?
That's stored in local storage. So local storage can get fairly large doing this. Haven't run into any problems yet with that. I mean the limitations. I mean, nobody's creating images in local storage with this. It's all just JavaScript code. There's more than enough space in JavaScript code in local storage to support all the projects that are in the book multiple times over. So it works fairly well there. We haven't run into any limitations with that just yet. But yeah, it is all stored in local storage. I guess we can take a look at it. If we save this as spinny shapes, if we save that, yeah, it'll generate an error. There's already a project with that name, so that's what the validate does. So, it works. It's in there. We just need to beef that up a little bit. That's what the 4 was. If we save it now, then we'll have a new projects with spinny shapes. That's number 4. Any questions for that so far?
No, I'm actually pretty psyched that it's less than 5 megabytes for all of this stuff to put in. You didn't have to do any hacks to get it beyond 5 megabytes for local storage, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, a lot of this stuff that goes into modern web applications that take up space is really the media. It's not so much the the actual code, and especially for a game programming book for kids, I'm not going to have them type out like 500 lines of code or 1,000 lines of code, and even if I did, it wouldn't. It doesn't take up that much space. So yeah, I mean, it turns out that like the 5 megabytes is more than enough for doing this kind of thing.
So
Go ahead.
No, I mean these don't go to any texturing or anything like that. You're just doing modeling and animation and possibly rigging. I don't know, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
The texturing would be where it would be really important, I would think.
Yeah, and there is some texturing that's done in the book, but these are those are loaded onto the Gaming.js website as just assets that get downloaded over the web. So they're not actually stored in local storage or in the code in here. So again, it doesn't count towards space that the kids would use.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Let's see. I want to take a look at some of the tests, if that's all right with you.
I was just thinking that actually. It's like, how is he testing this? And I know the answer to that, but let's take a look.
Well, so I mean, really, the original implementation of this was, like I said, it was done by Mr. Doob at 3JS fame, and it was pretty fantastic. And I started modifying it and sending pull requests and all that kind of stuff. But it quickly became apparent. I mean, he was very gracious about it and said that he's not really accepting pull requests at this time, except for like small stuff. He's not looking for this to be anything more than a demo kind of thing, whereas I needed it to be something bigger. So I forked it and was working on it. It was JavaScript at the time, and it was really it went fairly well for a while. And then I just started adding more features, and I stopped it one day and I said to myself that I have no idea if this code is still going to work anymore, and that's not okay. When you're making a code editor for kids, it's got to work. I mean, they're going to have a hard enough time grasping 3D game programming concepts, have a hard enough time learning JavaScript, the intricate, the ins and outs of JavaScript. I mean, heck, I still have a hard time with some of the ins and outs of JavaScript. So they're going to be fighting those things. They should never have to fight the editor. So I needed to know, and I needed a way to know that it was just going to always work. And that's where the tests really shine for Dart. So,
yeah, and the kids, do you find that they understand like different browsers, or are they just opening whatever the default is?
Well, for browsers, we require, and the book says that it requires Chrome. That was just the easiest way to try to, and actually there is a chapter in the book that goes through a little bit of debugging in the Chrome, the JavaScript console, and the web developer tools. So we kind of require that, but at the same time, all the code and the code editor works in IE, it works in Firefox, it works in Safari. It works very well in all of those, thanks to 3JS and thanks to Dart.
Okay, thanks.
For the most part, it hasn't been an issue with the kids because they're all using Chrome. Okay, so we just like the CopyDialog itself is part of ICE. The CopyDialog tests are part of ICE test. Take a look at ICE test real quick, I guess, because it looks almost identical to the stuff we saw elsewhere. So we've got the library declaration up here. We pull in some of the things that we're going to need, like unit test library, some of the core Dart packages that we're going to need, some helper functions that we declare in here. And then going on down to here, we've got the CopyDialog test, which is what we were just looking at, and we call the CopyDialog tests right down here. So,
Chris, how do you actually run the tests?
Let's see. There's a couple of different ways of doing that. Let me get back over to the web server. I'm going to start. So Dart's packaging tool, DartPub, it comes with a web server that's built in for smoke testing applications. Ignore these warnings. This is from some of the Polymer work that we've been doing. We have to clean those up at some point. But these yellow lines, those are fine. We know about those. But it starts up a web server that we can test out our applications on, which is really awesome. And it normally spins up on 8080, port 8080, and that's what we've been looking at so far right here. But if you've got a test directory, it also starts up a web server on 8081. So if I copy that and go to it, it'll load up those tests and it'll just run through all of them. And I'm not sure how quick the screen is updating for you, but every now and then you can see an entire version of the ICE code editor show up in the back before it gets torn down. So this is one way of running it. And if I look in the JavaScript console, you can see that all 187 tests just passed. It just ran all 187 tests that are in the ICE code editor test suite, just like that. Which it's nice. I think it takes somewhere between 10-12 seconds to run the entire test suite. And these aren't really unit tests. These are more acceptance level tests, as we'll see in a second. So it's really nice that you can run that many tests that quickly and get that kind of feedback from that stuff. The other way of running it is from the command line. There's a content shell is the way of doing it. Content shell, that's built into the Chrome library nowadays. It's sort of a non-UI version of the browser. It normally just renders like the DOM structure of a web page you might be looking at. So dump render tree, and I can look at test index.html. This will go through and run all the tests as well.
How different is running the shell versus the browser as far as accuracy?
I've never had it be any different. It's always identical. Actually, that's not true. I think there are some times where I think the single page load, the single origin policy is a little bit more lax on the content shell than it is on the browser. So sometimes you'll get failures in the browser because of that, that they'll pass in the content shell. But aside from that, I really haven't had any problems with it.
Nice.
So it just ran through. It ran all 187 tests, and they passed, which makes it really nice for doing stuff like, for continuous integration and that kind of stuff. It's just brilliant to know that we never break anything that was important to us whenever we make our updates. It's important to have tests on regular code, any kind of code that you're going to put into production, but it's for the kids, man. It's all for the kids. So it really means a lot to me that we've got this level of assurance that we're not breaking things. All right, the tests themselves. This is baked into this is part of Dart itself. It comes with a very nice unit test library that just makes sense. I mean, it's got groups. You got setup, you've got teardown, and you've got your tests. And starting on line 23, this test, we can open a CopyDialog, and we give it a description. We give it an anonymous function. That's what this thing is. Functions in Dart are just like functions in JavaScript, except you don't have to type out the word function, which is nice. It's one of those things you don't think too much about, but it is really annoying to have to type out the word function all the time in JavaScript. But as for the tests themselves, I mean, this is an acceptance level test. This isn't testing an individual method anywhere. What we're doing in here is we're clicking on a button that has the text, this little hamburger icon. Then we click on the Make a Copy menu item. And then we expect to see that there's going to be a dialog that's open that's going to have a save element in there. And you know, that's nice. It's nice, it's elegant, but it's actually testing useful things. It's testing that if I click on the menu button, it's going to bring up the Make Dialog, the Make a Copy dialog, and it's going to have a button that I can click on that's save. You know, we've got a couple other tests in here. Test the enter key. This is the hack that we do in order to test the enter key. And then we actually test like existing, you know, creating projects and stuff like that down here. So let's see. Project name field is incremented with multiple tests. Yeah, so in this one, we click the button, we create a new project in there, we give it a name of project 1, we save it, we click the menu item again, we're going to make a copy of that project 1, we save it, we click it, we click the make a copy again, and this is the test right here that verifies it's going to be project 1 with, in parentheses, the number 2, because we can't overwrite an existing project. We use the convention of putting the copy number inside the parentheses there. And so this, I mean, this is testing something of actual value that, you know, if that didn't work, it would cause problems for the kids. So it's nice to know that this is always there. Anytime I'm making changes anywhere, it's you know, it's going to get updated. It's going to keep working. So I really like this kind of stuff, and it reads well as well. Any questions about that?
They're really nice looking tests, actually.
Yeah, they are. I mean, part of this is Dart. Part of this is this helpers library that we've built up for this particular you know, for this particular project. Myself and the contributors, I really owe a lot to the contributors that have helped out with all this code right here. None of this would have gotten done without their help. So,
helpers, is that a separate dependency that you can use in other projects?
I could. I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to break it out, but you know, right now it's sort of coupled a little bit to, you know, this particular project. Nobody's really asked for it as a separate thing. I would imagine that somebody's going to come along and do something like this, a little bit better scale than I've done right here. But this is the library, the ICE test library, that's pulling in the CopyDialog. It also pulls in the helpers.dart right here. That's where it gets pulled in from. And look at test helpers.dart. This is where it comes from. It pulls in a few helpers from other packages. This keyboard shortcut stuff. Pulls in some matchers to make it a little bit nicer, and then it you know, it just things that make it easier to test. And it's not really that large, really. I guess I could make that you know, publish that. We've only found it useful for ourselves, and nobody's really asked for it yet. But you know, it's Dart, so it would be easy to pull out as its own package. Let's see. One thing that I do like about this, if you run the tests, I mean, it does take a while to run them all. If you're just doing this, it takes like I said, somewhere between 10 and 12 seconds, which is not horrible, but sometimes you don't want to have to wait those 10, 12 seconds if you're impatient or you're refactoring a lot of stuff. Dart gives you, or the unit test library gives you the ability to say, I just want to test this one thing right here by making it a solo test. So if I go back here and rerun that test, just runs one test now, which is nice. I don't have to target line. I don't have to change the command line in order to do this. I don't have to target a single line in the test file. I just have to mark it as a solo test, and it'll do it. And you can actually have multiple solo tests. So this will do two file, or this will be two passing right now. And this is really nice to get quick, almost instant feedback on this kind of stuff. And you could do it with groups as well. So this will make the entire group run the entire group test right there. So I can't say enough about the job they've done with the Dart folks have done with the testing libraries. It really is nice. Not to mention that you can also get tools for doing code analysis to make sure you're not assigning strings to integers and all that kind of good stuff. Any questions about that?
Eric, you have anything?
Not a problem. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that the ICE code editor itself, the code editing that goes on in here with the syntax highlighting and all that kind of stuff, I did not write that. We did not write that. This is actually the Cloud9 ACE code editor that does all the code right here. It doesn't do any of the previews or compiling or any of the other stuff. That's all done with Dart. But when I sat down to think about doing this kind of stuff, and even the original version that was done by Mr. Doob, it was it was the kind of thing where we don't want to write this. People have already solved this problem. People are already working on this kind of thing. So I just wanted to use that. But it's ACE, which is JavaScript. So one of the nice things about Dart, is that it works, but it makes it so easy to work with JavaScript code. Up here in the library of ICE, we're pulling in this Dart.js core package. We're pulling it in as JS to give it a little prefix to make it a little bit more obvious when we're working. It's just my own convention. It makes it a little bit more obvious when you're working with JavaScript code. So if we come over here and we look at lib, some of the editor stuff right here, we have a bunch of stuff that starts the ACE code editor and starts interacting with it. Let's see, start ACE, start at JS ACE. All right. So this is, create a new instance of the ACE code editor right here. We set a couple of things that are normally done with by the code editor by ACE. We set the default theme. We give it the font size. These are all properties that come directly from ACE. ACE session. We want to set that we're working with JavaScript code, so we get the nice syntax highlighting. And more importantly, we also get the error messages. So if we go back here and look at this one right here, it'll say that a leading decimal point could be confused with a dot. So it's it tells the kids those kinds of things. It gives them those little hints so that they might it helps them not make errors or identify little things that might be problems. And that's all coming from ACE. Thanks to the stuff that they've got going on in there. And so let's see. Come on down here. So this is the ACE class right here, starting on line 292. This is one of the things that we could probably break out into its own Dart file. Something for another day. But we go ahead and we get the JavaScript ACE function right here through this context property. And when you're working with ACE, it just there's a global variable named ACE, and it's got a method on it called edit, and this is how you interact with this. This is a little there are nicer ways of working with objects in Dart. Working with JavaScript objects from Dart. The ACE code editor doesn't really expose anything that Dart can make use of. So you have to do this kind of slightly awkward dance where you've got to get the JavaScript context, ask for the ACE top-level variable, then call this edit method on it with supplying the elements that's going to be attached in there. That's not great, but it works. And then in the constructor, we do a little bit of configuration. We set this worker path, which is a web worker for doing code analysis on JavaScript. And then the rest of this stuff is just ways of wrapping ace methods or ace setters and that kind of stuff. So we saw getters before, Dart getters before. This is a Dart setter, where you can just say, the ace font size is equal to, and it'll go in there, but you don't actually have to use parentheses or anything like that. It cleans it up. So you don't have to say set font size is equal to that like you would have to in JavaScript. In Dart, you just use the equal operator right there, and you get what you're looking for.
Now this assumes that there's, if I'm reading it right, tell me if I'm wrong rather, but this assumes that you're teaching at a one-to-one level, right? Rather than having multiple screens that are, like another student could be building with another student collaboratively.
That's right. Yeah, and
okay.
that is one of the other, one of the next milestones we've been discussing. We haven't really figured out how we might want to do something like the collaboration. And it's a possibility, especially since that's what Cloud9 does. I mean, this is one of the features that they use the ACE code editor for, is doing collaborative kind of editing. So it's definitely on our roadmap. We just haven't started working on that one yet. And it's not something that was necessary for the book. So it didn't make it into the first one, but it's on our radar. We'd like to do something like that. Just want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the rest of this stuff is just, all this is just like, it's just wrappers around, the JavaScript methods. Here we've got the focus method. It calls the JavaScript, the JavaScript ACE. It calls the focus method in there, and it really worked out nice. I mean, this is one of those areas that it could still, this particular code in ICE could use a little bit of cleanup, because we've recently switched over to the newer ways of this newer Dart.js package. It's a core package. There used to be harder ways of doing this, or when it was first done, it was done as a separate Dart package. It was a little bit more awkward to work with, and so some of this code in here is a little bit of a legacy of working with that. But when we actually switched over, it worked fairly well. It went really well. We were extremely pleased. I think it took us like a day to switch over from the old JavaScript wrapping implementation to this new one, and it went smoother than we really expected. It was really nice.
Where do the JavaScript dependencies live in the repo? How do you pull those in?
That's a good question. We haven't really decided how we want to do that yet. So right now they just sort of live in the actual package. EC/ICE code editor. So right now they're living like everything else. They live in the lib directory in here, and that's in this JavaScript file in here, and ACE right in there. So they live right in lib.js ACE, and it's not horrible. I mean, it's a fine way of doing it, and it works. The only thing that really bothers me is that if you click on the statistics, the language statistics for the ICE code editor, JavaScript is like 90% right now, and Dart is only 12%, but we never actually do any JavaScript work on this. We're always coding in Dart. It's just that the ACE code editor is so huge that it skews our statistics. So that's really the only reason we might want to switch off, is to and use something like Bower or one of the other JavaScript packages, just so we get better statistics for Dart.
There was another dependency in there, deflate. What's that all about?
That's not used very much. That is used for when you want to share the project. So if you want to take this and you click on this share button right here, it gives you this base64 encoded string right here, and that's what this comes from. It's using the gzip algorithm in order to generate this little string. So if I copy this, and I go to, let's see, here, create a new, go incognito, and paste this string in that I copied, it'll open up that exact project, even though it's an incognito window. And so it's just that string that gets appended on there. And that's the only reason we use the deflate and inflate. It was just a way of doing that. And I don't know if I remember correctly. This may have come from the original implementation that Mr. Doob did. I might have just carried that over. But we wanted a way for kids to be able to say, share with relatives, share with friends. Hey, look at this awesome thing I just made. So all they have to do is copy that and send it in an email, something like that.
Nice.
So I think that's pretty much most of what I wanted to show folks with the ICE code editor. I don't know if there are any other questions that anybody has.
So what challenges did you face in the bigger parts? Because you've been through a lot of different, you've been through a lot of commits basically, and 3 releases, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
So what were the pain points that you eradicated?
Well, the unfortunate one that we're working on right now is, if you're talking about code pain points or pain points, code pain points, the code pain points remain the testing of the text input, keyboard input. That one, oh gosh, we have tried to solve that one in all sorts of ways. We've tried to generate events inside JavaScript using the Dart.js package. We've spent hours and hours trying to solve that one and just never really got any close to that one. It still bothers me. I wish they'll get it eventually. I just wish it was in place right now. So that's the main one. The other one is that just the JavaScript implementation, this Dart.js package changing around. It used to be a separate package. Some of the semantics changed when it went there, so that was a bit difficult. I guess it was more of a problem before it switched to this new core Dart.js package than the Dart.js library. The old one was a little bit more awkward to work with, so it's been nicer now that we're able to do this.
And you said that there's a Polymer piece to this. Where is that located?
It's actually just located right in the same project. So we got a smoke test page for it. So if we go to, I think it's Polymer HTML, I'll just do it right in here. So this is still accessing the same web page. It's using polymers in there to show this kind of stuff. And it's nice because this will allow us to write blog posts or that kind of stuff where we just embed the code, live code directly in there, and kids can interact with it. And you can change that to 20, and now this is spinning around like crazy. So it really opens up some interesting possibilities for blog posts, especially for interacting with kids or classroom kind of thing. So we're pretty excited with that. And if we look at the code, this is this is compiled code. But if we look at this is the ICE code editor element that we're using in order to do this. We just ICE code editor. We get the source from some external file, this embed file that we just has the code that we want to use. We scroll to line 49, and it just gets embedded in there. Line 49 is right there, and it shows up. So that's where it resides.
That's great. I mean, with the web components, you get that I guess pseudo encapsulation. So that's pretty awesome. And it's all, since you require Chrome, everything is there, so you don't have to even load the polyfills in this case. But for the blog posts, like there's interesting work that Famous is doing now, where they're doing front-end containers like Docker has for back-end.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like solving the same problem with the web components as well, for blogs and all sorts of being able to put your code anywhere, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is great.
And Chris, is there a build process for this? If you wanted to deploy it, how do you compile the Dart into a bundle of JavaScript to put out there?
Really, you just use the Dart.js thing, the Dart.js utility that comes with Dart in order to do that. We did a little bit of extra stuff in order to make this work with. If you go onto gamingjs.com, gamingjs.com. I'll take the book. I'm going to go to gamingjs.com/ice. If you go into here, this isn't I mean, this is compiled JavaScript, but it's also a app cache, application cache file, so that if we disconnect the internet, it'll still work. That's one of the things that we thought would be nice for the kids if they're working, driving vacation or something with their computers, or they're just at a friend's house that doesn't have internet for whatever reason. I guess most people have internet nowadays, but wanted to still be able to the code to still be able to work. So we add a little bit of stuff in there for being able to do the application cache. But for the most part, it really is just Dart2JS to compile the code, and it just works from there.
Yeah, offline access is really important, even in areas that have good internet connection. I mean, if Gmail goes down, the world cries out in horror. So stuff, it's like overlooked typically, but this is great. I think app cache or whatever you're going to be using to do offline is great.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's one of those things that we didn't want. Again, it speaks to, we want this just to work for kids. They shouldn't ever have to worry about, is it a network problem? Is it is it an editor problem? Or we just want them to focus on coding problems. So, yeah, I mean, if the internet's down, or it goes down for any particular reason, the ICE code editor is still going to work for them because of that application cache offline stuff. So yeah, that's a good point. That really was a huge deal for us. We're glad we support that.
Especially if you're in a school, right, and you have everyone's connected at once, things are going to be real slow. So
yeah, no, and I've done presentations before at conferences and stuff, and had people load this up, and it still works. I mean, it takes a little while to download this stuff because the Dart2JS compiled stuff is still somewhat on the largish side. We're pulling in a lot of libraries. It takes up 100K or thereabouts files. So, if a whole bunch of people are downloading it at one time, it might take a little long, but it gets there, and then people are able to use it without any network contention whatsoever. So it is. You're right. It is a big deal.
Have you had any problems with the app cache manifest file sticking, so it's hard to get rid of?
No, I mean I haven't. We haven't. We don't update it very often. I think we've updated it once since the book was released, and once we get this latest feature done, we're going to update it again, probably by the end of the year. So we don't do it very often, and when we the last time we released it, there were maybe a couple of thousand users, and nobody really complained at that point. It'll be interesting to see what happens this next time around. We're using the usual script that goes through, and we'll check for the application cache updates, and we'll prompt the user to reload and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we won't run into any issues, but we'll see.
Can we just take a quick look at that? The manifest?
Manifest, let's see. It's going to be in gamingjs/ice. All right, so let's see. The manifest is an editor app cache. I guess. Let's see. Index.html. This is the page itself, and there's nothing on the page. It's empty body. It just lets the full screen editor attach. We're pulling in the app cache.js, which is the normal way of doing application cache, and the manifest file is specified up here with the editor.appcache. So if we look at editor.appcache, this is generated by a script for the most part. Last time we updated it was back in July. Actually, that's a lot. That's
last year.
Yeah, we also have an ICE beta, which is where we've been doing some more. We've done this more recently. So if we look at this one, this was generated back in September of this year, and so the cache contains the raw deflate, the deflate inflate stuff. Some of we have our own version of 3JS because again, all these are libraries that the kids use in the book, and we didn't want them to have to download those, be network dependent on any of that stuff. So it gets loaded into application cache. Then we've got some Dart files. I'm not even sure we need to have this main.dart. That might need to. Actually, that does need to go in there. But for the most part, it's just this compiled JavaScript, either the compiled JavaScript here, this main.dart.js, or any of the Ace JavaScript that goes into building the editor.
Cool. Thank you. It's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's been a blast. It really, it's been fun on many different levels working with this because it's Dart code. It's fun to work with the Dart code. It feels really nice coding in there. It's great. It's a great feeling to work with this. For producing something for the kids that the kids really seem to be taken with. They really seem to enjoy working with it. Got a lot of positive feedback there. And it's also good doing the pair with me sessions. People just signing up on nightly. I do pair with me sessions at 10:30 every night Eastern time, and just introducing people to this stuff and helping me drive this stuff forward. So this has really been a lot of fun on many different levels.
So if people want to just randomly show up and pair with you, I think I'm showing your calendar right now from that pair with me link. Hopefully it shows up in the video for people that are watching, and you can find that link on Chris's blog as well.
Yeah, you're not sharing, Chris, on yours.
Oh, I'm not.
No, Christian, yeah.
Oh.
No,
Sorry,
not
Chris.
screen sharing. The Hangout has a feature for sharing links, but I'm not sure how.
Oh, I see.
So hopefully this will show up in the YouTube video afterwards. Is there anything specific that you guys are working on right now that you'd like to pair on with someone?
I think right now we're focused entirely on one last feature that we want to get in there, which is preventing undos from wiping out projects. We had one kid, unfortunately, wipe out their projects entirely by doing undo too often, one time too many, and didn't know how to redo stuff. So we're doing stuff for like taking snapshots and letting kids access snapshots of old code. I mean, we're not going to teach them Git or source code control, but we're taking like 10-minute snapshots of the code, so they're never going to lose everything entirely. And so that's the last feature that we're working on with this in order to prevent that kind of stuff. And once that's done, we'll push this out, and then we'll go ahead and get started on some of those new milestones, maybe collaboration, or build this Polymer element a little bit more, really whatever anybody is interested in pairing on.
Awesome.
Yeah, is that Polymer element interactive? Like, could we type in it?
Yeah, I think it's on the Gaming.js site as well. So if I go to, let's see, I'm going to guess that it's at Polymer. Yep, it is. So if you go to gamingjs.com/Polymer, we've got the actual demo running right there. And yeah, if you type on any stuff in there.
Is that published in Bower, or is it only specifically in your repo?
Well, this is built with. I mean, this is Dart code, so it's not published with Bower yet. I haven't really thought about doing that yet. There's still a few more features that we'd like to add in to the Polymer element before it's really officially done. So that's definitely something that's on the roadmap that we'd like to get added. We'll get it into Bower eventually.
That's nice.
So is there anything else that you would like people to know about the project, or other stuff you're working on? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'm gonna always plug the 3D game programming for kids book. I think it's it really came together well. It was just I started working on that at just the right time, and I really appreciate Mr. Dube's help in getting the original code editor out there. It came together well, and I think it's a great way of teaching kids programming for the web, and kind of does it in a sneaky way for trying to wrap it in the wrapping paper of 3D game programming. But it's a great way of learning. I think I've been really super pleased with how it all turned out, and excited with the reception. So definitely check that out if you're at all interested in programming or wanted to learn, or if you have somebody that might be interested in learning how to program.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, I had no Dart knowledge even when I paired with you. I didn't even know the project was in Dart. I just knew I liked the project. So, so when I paired with you, I was like, whoa, am I going to be any use here? Because I don't know any Dart, and it was a pretty fast learning curve, pretty shallow.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things that I really appreciate people's help on this. I don't work on the ICE code editor unless people are pairing with me, and I've been just very fortunate that I've had so many people sign up to do this over the years, I guess, that we've been doing this. Especially appreciate the core collaborators, the folks that keep coming back over and over again. But each one of these people represents at least one night, and including the two of you, and one night of working on this code that I wouldn't otherwise do. So there's a lot of a lot that I have to be grateful for pushing this stuff forward. And you're right. It doesn't make any difference to me if you have zero knowledge of Dart whatsoever. It helps me to push this code forward. So I would. I'm grateful for anybody that signs up, and would definitely appreciate it if other people would as well.
I would like to plug your book, Patterns in Polymer. I really enjoyed that book, and the updates using GitScribe. So when you buy the book, you actually get like a version that keeps updating. Like every time he revises a chapter, you can just pull the latest, build it yourself, and you have a new PDF. So it's pretty awesome, and your blog also is just great if you want to learn anything about Polymer, especially. The Dart stuff is pretty awesome too, but the Polymer stuff I'm very, very interested in. So.
Yeah, it's that's been fun, and I'm working through. It's been a bit of a challenge keeping up to date with Polymer since that library keeps moving so fast, but.
Yeah.
Finally got the screencasts done, or at least the initial screencasts done, and I'm working through the rest of the chapters to try to get them up to date. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's been a challenge, but it's also been a lot of fun. So I'm glad to hear that you appreciate it.
So is there anything else that we haven't covered dealing with the ICE editor? Are we good?
No, I think we're good. I mean, and I would just reiterate the idea that you don't need any Dart experience whatsoever to help out with this. Even if we only make one commit or something after like talking about the code or anything, it helps me. It helps move the code forward, and it's for the kids. It's for the kids. So it helps kids learn how to program. It's all for the kids. So if anybody's interested, please sign up. There's a sign up sheet, on my blog. On the ICE code editor project at the very bottom. I would love to have people help out.
Are you on Twitter a lot as well?
I'm not on Twitter too much. I'm there, and I'll do Twitter a lot more when I'm doing the blogging. I've taken a break from the blogging just so I can get the screencast done. I was not able to get the screencast, so I'll get there. But yeah. @E_C is my Twitter handle.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for joining us. This was awesome. I'm looking forward to looking at the video again and pairing with you again as well.
Yeah,
so,
I would look forward to it too. I appreciate the help that both of you have given so far.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris.
All right. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.